it was a terrible crime. It happened in a small legal office that specialized in real estate and in immigration matters. At this little legal office, somebody saw smoke coming out of the stairwell at that office. They called the fire department. Firefighters showed up, and they did what brave firefighters do. They charged right into that burning building. Firefighters immediately found the source of the fire. Somebody had made a big pile of books and papers from that office and lit them all on fire. They also found a person. They found a man lying on the floor next to the fire in the front office. And they dragged that man out of the building to save him, to get him medical attention. When they got him out of the building, though, they realized quickly that this wasn't just going to be a fire call. This was going to be a police call, because the man was not just unconscious from smoke inhalation or something. The man had been smashed in the head. It looked like with an axe or maybe a metal bar. And amazingly, when the firefighters got there, the man was still alive. But as they got the EMTs starting to work on him and trying to save him, it turns out he only lived for a few more minutes before he passed away. Meanwhile, the firefighters pushed further into the burning office. And then in an inside room, they found yet another fire, a second fire, same MO as the fire in the front room. It was another pile of books and papers that had been sort of hastily piled up and then set on fire. So it's a paper fire. It's really smoky. It's making it very hard to see what's going on. But these are professional firefighters. They get both of these fires in this legal office under control. And as they push further into the office, in that back room in the office with the second fire, they find two more people laying on the ground. It's two women. And again, awfully, these are not people who have just been incapacitated by the fire or the smoke. These women have also been violently attacked. One of the women is dead. She has been beaten all over her body, and she has had her throat slit with a large knife or a machete. The second woman has also been beaten, like the man in the front office. She has been smashed in the head. But when the firefighters get to her, they find that she is still breathing. It seems like a miracle. They get her out of the burning building. They get her out to the paramedics. The paramedics work feverishly to try to save her life. But like the man in the front room who had been hit with the axe, she is also too badly injured to survive. And the EMTs work to save her for more than half an hour before she also dies on the scene. So I told you, it's just a terrible, terrible crime. This happened at a small law office in the summer of 2016, June 2016. It happened in Madrid, in a fashionable neighborhood in Madrid, in Spain. And it made national news in that country, as you would expect. This was just a brutal, brutal, violent triple murder at a legal office. You know, and the weapons were terrible, with an axe and a machete, and 3 people killed, then the crime scene set on fire to cover the murderer's tracks. It's just absolutely horrific. But they got the guy. Investigators in Spain ended up picking up his trail, in part because of the lid of a water bottle that he left behind at the scene. They trailed him as he fled Spain. He went first to Germany, where he had previously lived, and then he fled from Germany to South America. He went to Venezuela. And when the Spanish investigators trailed him to Venezuela, Spain's government asked Venezuela to extradite him, to send him back to Spain to face trial for this horrific triple murder in this law office in Madrid. And Venezuela said they would not do that. As a matter of policy, they do not extradite people to face trial in other countries. But they do allow people to face trial in their country for crimes allegedly committed elsewhere, for crimes committed outside their borders. And so, with the evidence from the law office murders and fires, with the evidence that let these Spanish prosecutors and investigators track this killer all across the globe, as he led them on a chase on 2 different continents, in Venezuela, they put the guy on trial. And he was convicted of this brutal triple murder. He got 30 years in prison. And Donald Trump just set him free. Trump sprung him from prison and flew him to the United States. This is the guy in the second row. This is him. This is Trump flying him back to the United States. He flew him back to the U.S. and then he just let him go. In San Antonio, the New York Times cited a source saying that they believe after he was sprung and set loose in San Antonio, the man reportedly made his way back to Florida for some reason. He's apparently on the streets of Orlando right now. Convicted triple murderer, the axe and machete guy, who was serving a 30-year prison sentence for that triple murder. Donald Trump set him free. Thank you, Trump administration. Thank you, President Donald Trump, for being so tough on crime. The triple murderer guy, the convicted triple murderer guy, was set free to roam the streets of Orlando as part of Donald Trump's botched El Salvador prison thing. You may recall Trump randomly declared that we had been invaded by Venezuela, remember? And because of this insane pretext that we were at war with Venezuela because Venezuela invaded us, Trump said that justified us using the Alien Enemies Act. It justified us using military force and tactics against people on U.S. soil, which specifically in this case meant sending people to a foreign prison, effectively a concentration camp, because at this prison they afforded people no hearing, no legal process whatsoever, no way to ever get out. Trump's attitude in this whole gambit was, just call it war. Call them alien enemies. Call it war. Say this is a military action. And that means you can do anything you want. In the humiliating collapse of that bizarre, pornographically cinematic, transparently pretextual gambit, Trump ultimately had to get everybody out of that foreign prison that he had sent them to. But in so doing, he couldn't just admit that he had done something transparently illegal and extra-constitutional and patently ridiculous that was never, ever going to survive scrutiny by the courts. He had to make it somehow look like he was winning, that this wasn't just a collapse of a bizarre, transparently pretextual, botched political gambit. This was somehow a win for Donald Trump. This was something he meant to do all along. And so the people who he sent, the men he sent to that foreign prison in El Salvador, they all got sent to Venezuela to be set free. And then Venezuela sent the United States people that it was holding in its prisons, including some random innocent Americans being held for essentially no reason by Venezuela's bizarre authoritarian government, but also a convicted triple murderer who used an axe and a machete to butcher his way through a Madrid law office before setting it on fire to cover his tracks. Trump got him freed too, and then just let him go inside the United States, where he roams free tonight. You'll also remember from that whole Trump debacle the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a man from Maryland. Americans all over the country learned this man's name and protested on his behalf and pressed their elected representatives on his behalf after the Trump administration admitted that this man with no criminal record whatsoever, they had sent him to that foreign prison totally by accident. They also said, however, that they did not intend to bring him home, even though they sent him to that foreign prison by accident. In order to cover up that mistake in that debacle, the Trump administration said that Mr. Abrego Garcia, even though he'd been sent to that prison by mistake, he would never, ever come home. Then it turned out they didn't really mean that either, because then they did bring him home. But they said they only brought him home so they could charge him with very serious crimes that they had never before thought to charge him with. Never been charged with anything before, but all of a sudden, that his case was part of this debacle, this collapse by Trump, completely mishandled at every step of the way. They had to make it look like some sort of a win. And so they had to come up with some way to make it seem like he was a criminal. And so all of a sudden, just in time, they turned up a cooperating witness who they'd never heard from before, who said, yeah, he was sure that Mr. Abrego Garcia had definitely done some crimes. And sure, he'd testify about it. What crimes do you want me to testify about? They turned up this brand new, never heard from before cooperating witness in prison. He'd been in prison a lot. In December of 2022, police in a place called The Woodlands in Texas, which is just north of Houston, police in The Woodlands received reports of shots fired in a residential neighborhood in the middle of the afternoon one day. They responded to the call. They pulled over a pickup truck. In the truck, they found the driver, also a silver handgun, also several live rounds of ammunition and 11 spent rounds, so 11 bullets that had been fired. They also found a passenger in the truck who was too drunk to speak with them. The driver of the truck told police that his friend, the passenger, was really, really drunk and had been shooting out the window of the truck into this residential neighborhood before he passed out. The passenger in the truck was a man who had previous arrests and convictions and jail time for lots of different offenses, including cocaine possession and public drunkenness and driving while intoxicated with a handgun in the car and other crimes. He was a man who was not in this country legally. He had, in fact, been deported 5 times. But he kept coming back, even as he kept going back to prison in this country again and again for new criminal offenses, including drunkenly shooting up that Texas neighborhood from the passenger seat of a moving pickup truck. And, you know, President Trump and the Trump administration, honestly, they just make up a lot of bad stuff about immigrants to try to make you think that there's something inherently criminal and terrible about being an immigrant. And that, of course, is not true categorically. But in this case, here's a guy who is kind of what they're talking about, right? He's got a really long rap sheet of sort of increasingly serious and dangerous felonies, including multiple increasingly dangerous gun crimes. Donald Trump, just this summer, set him free. This guy pled guilty to deadly conduct in the Texas incident. He was convicted on federal charges even after that and was already in federal prison serving that latest sentence and set for deportation upon his release. But Donald Trump reached into the federal prison system and sprung this guy, let him out. He's now in a halfway house, set to be fully released in January, whereupon Trump is reportedly set to give him a work permit as well. Because tough on crime. And also, Trump needed a story to tell about that Abrego Garcia guy that everybody was protesting about.